When you look at the Pirates and the start they're off to, obviously they've got one of the bright young players in the entire game in Paul Skeens. In your mind, did they do enough to build that thing around a dynamic type of a talent at this stage in his career?
Well, no, but I don't even know that they ever said they were going to try to do that right now. I mean, their pitch to their fans is that their farm system, is going to produce guys who they can pair with Skeens in the coming years, and we'll see how it goes. Sometimes those sort of gambits do work. I think the Baltimore Orioles have done an excellent job, building up their farm system and getting to a place where they're in contention. The Pirates very clearly are not interested in significant expenditures. And so you could make an argument that when you have a player as good as Paul Skeens, when he's healthy right now, your window is right now. You could create a team around him that no one wants to play in a short season in the postseason because you'd have to see, or short series in the postseason because you're facing Paul Skeens likely twice. In a 5-game series. So, but yeah, like I think there's a lot of teams who are sort of not being aggressive on free agents. That's nothing new. It's something that, close to a majority of the sport has been doing for several years. When you talk to these executives, in individual contexts, they all will say sort of what we all know is that free agent spending is an inefficient way to build a team, right? Like we know that giving long-term deals to guys on the backside of their careers, what by the time they get to free agency, those things often don't work out. But you look up in the postseason and who's there. It's usually the teams who give out those sort of contracts and are willing to
Right.
take on the risks. And so, like inside within context, it makes sense for the individual moves, but it's just a tough thing to sell to your fans over and over and over again. It's not just Pittsburgh who's doing this.
Well, and that's what I was driving at with a rather ineloquently phrased question there, which is it almost reminds me of in the NFL now when teams have started looking at this as, okay, it used to be you have the veteran quarterback. Now you're in your
Yeah.
championship window. Now it's, hey, you got a guy who's cost controlled for 3, 4, 5 years. We can spend all this additional money and try to win right now. I know baseball's different. The roster size are different. The inherent one-on-one nature of the game. But you just said it. I mean, this may be the best opportunity that you have, especially as a smaller market team that is going to be challenged as you get further down the road to lock up a player long term. Just the economics of the game would seem to indicate if you have something you can build around in a market like Pittsburgh, you may have to take your shot, or otherwise you're selling something that is going to be expired by the time you actually get there.
Yeah, well, you're also banking on everything working out with Skeens from a health perspective, and this is not like there's no inside info to suggest that as a pitcher, he is at risk for injury every time he picks up a baseball. It doesn't matter that he's this, 6'6" monster who, looks like built in a lab to do this. Like he's a pitcher and pitchers get hurt. We know this about all of them. And so, yeah, it's basically banking that like if everything goes right with this guy, everything else will go right to catch up with him. And we don't have to make sort of major, financial gambles as their owner would probably view it in order to do it. And so I think it's a tough look for the sport when you have certain teams, the Dodgers and the Mets, who are clearly just funneling millions upon millions, to build these potential super teams. You have other clubs, like Philadelphia has done that in years past, and they're kind of, set. San Diego has been really aggressive in spending. And then you have, the other clubs, the Clevelands and the Milwaukees and the Pittsburghs and Cincinnati. You can go on and on and on. They're mostly in the Central, who are just kind of hanging out and, hoping things break right and hoping to win 86 to 88 games, get into the postseason and do some damage there, and it's like, I get it. It makes sense from a sort of game theory or, probabilistic standpoint, but it's a tough sell to your fans when you see other franchises being so aggressive and trying to add talent.
I live in Minnesota. Everybody I know is a Twins fan.
Sure.
And
Another great example.
A lot of people there actively are rooting for that team to lose and the poll ads to sell because all of a sudden you start hearing that the books indicate that they're millions and millions in debt somehow while simultaneously not actually spending on the baseball team. You have pieces there, but if you don't do really anything to buoy yourself and make a big move, you're right. It's hard, and it's indicated by how few fans are in the stands in some of those stadiums.
For sure, yeah, and folks who are in the smaller markets will point to the revenue disparity of the amount of money that they're taking in versus what teams like the Dodgers or the Yankees are doing. The Dodgers with Shohei Ohtani have created this sort of money machine that sort of pays for itself. I mean, every every 15 minutes they announce a new sponsor. They have like an official beef jerky now of the Dodgers. It's crazy how much money is coming in there, and these other clubs don't have access to that because they don't have Ohtani. And so, the thing though is that they also have access often to revenue sharing, to ways from the general pool of funds to sort of stay afloat. But there are more clubs who are dealing with debt, as the Twins are. They're looking to explore a sale, especially with the threat of a lockout coming down the road. I think there's going to maybe be more of an impetus on some of these clubs who are half in, half out on whether or not they want to maintain ownership to try and do it before a lockout potentially comes in and causes some problems. So yeah, I just feel like there are a lot of franchises that are very stagnant, and that is creating a lane for the teams that are interested in spending now to really make some hay.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.